All right, welcome back to Morning Live. The theme of the 2019 event, that is the Food Safety Day. The theme is simply World Food Safety Day is an opportunity for food producers, businesses and consumers to remember that we all play a role in ensuring food we make, sell and eat and are nutritious and in order to sustain life and promote good health. In studio now, I'm joined by the expert himself in agribusiness, Shem Machoyo, who's with me. We want to elaborate more about now food safety because it's a day put aside by the UN to make sure at least now there's so much information going out there in terms of safety. Shem, good morning.
Morning.
Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Long time. Now, when you talk about food safety, you know, it boils down to consumables. You know, when you say consumables and you get the guys who go on the ground, as much as your suit is right now, you have the tie, but when you have your gumboots and everything, it starts from now planting process, because there's also the process whereby it has to be sprayed. The safety starts there now, because at the end of the day, these are consumables. Now, when you talk about food safety, maybe there must be a reason why this day was put aside, to make sure at least people are informed more about what's happening and just to be precautious about now the safety. What do you think prompted this decision?
Well, thanks once again. I think I'll base my responses basically to the Kenyan context.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And I think you've seen this, and it's all over. It's all over in the media about cholera and food-based diseases, foodborne diseases. And so, like in Kenya, the food industry is largely informal.
Yeah.
In fact, the informal food sector, so to speak, supplies 80% of the national demand of food. Okay. So that tells you that the food industry in Kenya is largely informal. Okay. And if you get out immediately, like this time, you will find people hawking tea, for example, and Madasi in the streets. And that's the big chunk of the food industry. And unfortunately, this group of the food industry is rudimentarily hygienically managed. So that poses a lot of risks, in terms of food safety and food health. So there is a really great need for people to really be cautious and be keen, especially when it comes to the supply, the food supply chain, and how to handle food to make sure that, right as you mentioned, from the farm to the fork, the food is free of contamination and is safe for consumption.
Sure, from the farm to the fork. That's now, that's a very powerful one. You see, at some point it has to be sprayed. That progress has to be taken care of. Now, looking at even the products, from fertilizers, from even the sprays, to make sure, of course, we kind of get rid of weed. And from experience, because you're also a farmer for that sake, what do you think about the issues surrounding now production, the production itself from the farm? Do you think there are improvements? Before now, we talk about now the issue of processing, even like packaging, and also now the retail power and the consumables. Do you think now it's been taken care of from the farm?
Well, we, like within the Kenyan context still,
absolutely.
We are quite, can I say, we have a long way to go. Nevertheless, we've made a little bit of strides in the recent days. For example, when you look at fruits and vegetables, and we're looking at the the domestic market, because most of the times what happens is that producers and actors within the value chain have been so keen on food safety, especially for food that is meant for the export market. But of late, we are seeing a lot of developments in the areas of policy and regulation, focusing on the domestic market. I think it's 1 or 2 years ago when Kenya Bureau of Standards, which is one of the biggest enablers in the food industry value chain, in terms of regulation, come up with the KS 1758, which is a standard which manages or regulates, food safety, enhances food safety in fruits and vegetables. Well, we have part 1, which looks at flowers, and flowers are huge chemical, consumers, but the good thing is that they're not consumables as such.
Yeah, sure.
But when we talk about food, then there is also need, and that is why we have the Kenya Bureau of Standard Regulations, which were brought into place together with Kenya Horticultural Council. I think it was last week or the week before, we have also seen the International Finance Corporation, IFC, together with Twiga Foods, which is one of the main, platform for food marketing, which links producers and markets. Also working together with IFC, which is a body of the World Bank, to help them bring about, food safety measures, especially when you're looking at the domestic market. So they're gonna develop a project together whereby they will train farmers and all the value chain actors along the value chain on food safety and on how to handle food. So I think, to answer your question, there's a lot that goes on at the primary level of production, which is spraying and ensuring that there are no pests and diseases. But there are also regulations that provide for when you should harvest, for example, what we call the maximum residual levels. When how long should you wait after spraying before harvesting produce to make sure that the chemicals you've sprayed have disintegrated and the food now is safe for consumption.
Wow. Now, you're actually right. This is the first UN World Food Day to be marked, actually. It's being marked today. Now, according to the website, they say the first celebration of the UN World Food Safety Day is marked globally on 7th of June. Now, it's the first one, of course, aims to strengthen efforts to ensure that the food we eat is safe. Now, they always say you are what you eat. And sometimes, back in our homes, sometimes we blame ourselves when you open your fridge or something like that. Any type of conservation, there's an aspect of negligence also. Because now when you have, for example, food poisoning, those things have been so much rampant. You mentioned cholera. Now, do you think there's enough information about just how to handle some food? We are used to going, for example, in a supermarket. People don't even check expiry dates. Yeah, so sometimes it can be very tough on you when you eat such things. And do you feel like we need to strengthen these ideas? Because now, as much as you mentioned also Kenya Bureau of Standards, there's some loopholes here.
I agree with you. I think there needs to be a lot in terms of awareness creation and sensitization of the public on food safety. I can give you an example. The standard I've mentioned that was launched by Kenya Bureau of Standards on food safety, looking at fruits and vegetables, is more than a year old now. But today evening, if you walk to the streets of Nairobi, you'll still find fruit and vegetable vendors doing it just besides the roadsides. And this poses a lot of contamination risks. There's dust, there's lead from vehicles, from the exhaust fumes. It's raining now, so there's running water all over. So this produces, for sure, I mean, is exposed to contamination risks to a great extent. But still, they are vending the products there because they're buyers. So people will have to buy, people will come and buy late in the day. So that tells you that people are not really well informed when it comes to food safety and food handling. So I agree with you. I think all stakeholders, of course, government is part of it, we can run away from it, but all of the rest. So we have other stakeholders within the value chain to talk strongly and create awareness and let people know that there is need to be keen in terms of what you consume. It's quite unfortunate that we are not really, our purchases of food or our consumption is not based on hygiene. It's not hygiene-based kind of consumption. It's price-based kind of consumption. So people will go to buy produce because the prices as compared to somewhere else. You mentioned about supermarkets, and also groceries. Perhaps these are presumed to be for the high end or medium income, earner, so to speak. But if you go to Kekomba or Kibera, you find the Mama Mboga, and when you look at the way he handles or she handles the food, so that also poses risk. So I think there needs to be a lot of sensitization, but not only that, we need to really work hard to alleviate poverty, because I strongly feel that if we alleviate poverty, then we empower the population in terms of the purchasing power, you know. They are able to, they have this disposable income to consume. Therefore, they can be able to now focus on hygiene-based foods rather than price, because then they are economically empowered. Okay,
we'll take a short break now. When you come back, I need to talk to you about the issue of, you know, when you talk about farm, for example, let me give an example. Maybe cassava grows in a sewage. Now it looks healthy. You know what I mean? Maybe some fish that actually just kind of finds its way in the sewage. People are kind of consuming it. Anyway, those are the questions. But to see, at the end of the day, this sukuma wiki looks very nice. Very healthy, actually. You can consume it. But now, the question is, can it be used with the fact that now it may grow up kwa sewage? Now, those are the questions you need to answer. We'll take a short break now. When you come back, this is the critical angles we want to look at, because now, at the end of the day, it feels like you need to know where it's also being grown. So, all that coming to you in a short while. Stay tuned to Morning Live. All right, welcome back to Morning Live. Yes, key inclusions right here as far as now the food safety is concerned. Ensure itself, grow itself, keep itself, check itself, and team up for safety. Now, loopholes, checking if it's safe. The aspect of expiry dates, but of course, keep itself. Your storage, very important. Grow itself. Now, one of the components we want to talk about. As I mentioned earlier, before we took a break, sewage. You know, when you find or you see a sukuma wiki growing on a sewage, you find like, oh, mbolea, whatever, it's healthy, something like that. Now, what do you take of this? Because now, as much as you buy these things in the market, we don't know how they are grown. Now, look at the standards. They look healthy, but now the products of that catapult is kind of very weird. Now, what can you say about that as an agribusiness specialist?
Well, yeah, it's quite unfortunate that in society we have unscrupulous business people as well.
So it's happening?
Yeah, it really is happening.
Okay.
In fact, it's advised that when you go to a grocery or a supermarket and you tend to look at, observe the vegetables, for example, it's sukuma wiki, and if it looks really flashy, you know, really good, and it doesn't really have any, naturally they should have a little bit of, can I say, we call them holes, I mean, for
yes. So some, I know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
It should not be so much healthy.
Uniform, you
that's
see?
what people go for, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it really looks good. But, well, I'm not saying everything that looks like so comes from sludge or sewage.
Okay.
But there are high chances.
Okay.
Why? Not only sludge, also high, you know, chemical use. Because by spraying them heavily, then you keep off the insects that tend to inflict those
the
deformities that you can see on them. So that tells you that this crop has been either, you know, heavily sprayed, or perhaps it's coming from, you know, raw sewage. And I think that's why I was saying that, like in Kenya, we are a little bit making a little bit of strides in this. You know, recently you heard there was a debate about crop regulations that are stipulating on how farmers should use like animal manure, and there was quite an uproar when it was said that farmers should not use, for instance, raw cow manure.
Cow dung. I think that's something that's been used for a long time. Even our grandfathers have been using the same thing.
Well, I think the measure here is to prohibit, you know, farmers, for example, from using raw waste. And like cow dung, for example, well, it has been used for years. But when you use cow dung as raw, as it is, it's never beneficial to the plant. because it needs to decompose.
Okay.
That's why we talk about compositing.
Okay.
So that takes that cow dung through a process through which it decomposes and avails the minerals that it has to the plants. But when it's used
directly,
raw, then it's of no use to the plant.
All right.
But that has created room now for unscrupulous people to use raw human waste, for example, or sewage, for that matter. So this regulation, therefore, helps to prevent that and monitor, make sure that, because there's also the element of inspection, where you will have inspectors from government coming to visit your farm to see how you do your farming. So that means that if you're using cow dung, for example, it needs to undergo that process that it is required to, so that it is now good for use.
Let's talk about GMO. At some point, it was the introduction that came in very big in this country, just to make sure the supply of products, agricultural products, is kind of very consistent. Now that means GMO product. That means maybe if originally the growth period was 2 weeks, it will take 3 days for it to be complete and ready to be served, to be cooked and served. What do you take of this? How are people taking this? Because also, there's the fear of deformities in our bodies. Like, you consume GMO, then there's an aspect of loopholes, nutritional loopholes, and so many things.
Yeah, so I know it's a big debate. GMO. I mean, there are people who are anti, and there are some who are pro. But where I come from, where I stand, I work for an organization called ECO-SPRU. So ECO stands for ecological agriculture, where we support sustainable agriculture approaches, and where we strongly oppose genetically modified organisms. Reason being, well, researches have been done here and there, as you mentioned, and some have pinpointed effects, health effects, to the utilization of genetically modified organisms. Some say, well, more research needs to be done to bring this out. But for us, we champion, sustainable or ecologically sustainable principles, whereby we say our farming system should not, be environmentally hazardous, because we need to maintain this environment for even generations to come, even as we make use of the resources it provides. And also the element of sustainability. Sustainability means, for example, my grandmother has been recycling seed, for example. And they have, the seeds that they know perform well within their agroecological zone, where they are based. So when you bring in, can I call them foreign particles, then this farmer's livelihood is endangered. Because, for one, perhaps this farmer will have to rely on purchasing of seed every now and then when they're doing their planting. And perhaps the seeds they're buying are not performing well in their localities. And so I think there's a lot of debate in that. But coming to people who promote organic agriculture practices, and when you're talking about organic agriculture practices, you're talking about superior food, safe food for the population, then we are a little bit uncomfortable when it comes to genetically modified organisms.
Now, there's some facts here, food safety facts, where say an estimated of 600 million people, almost 1 in 10 people in the world, fall ill after eating contaminated food, and 420,000 people die every year. Now, when you talk about contamination, you see now you talk about all the processes from the farm to the harvesting, transportation, to the market, from the market. That chain continues now to the consumables, retailers, everything. Now, contamination. You see, at the end of the day, as a farmer, you might be very innocent. You kind of just transport a very healthy product. But now, the consumers kind of not know how to handle it. Now, handling and storage has been a very, very difficult process for so many people. Now, what do you think about this aspect? Because in agriculture, there's also a cycle. You need to understand the cycle. So what do you think about handling and contamination? Because look, like 420,000 people die every year. Goodness, it's a big number.
Quite shocking statistics. I can say that, when you look at the food value chain, and most of the times, like now, when you're talking about food security, yeah, there's a great component of food safety as far as food security is concerned, because as we speak now, we lose almost 50% of our fruits and vegetables. I mean, we call it crop loss, post-harvest losses. And these losses are due to handling sometimes, and also storage, poor handling, whereby if we're talking about fruits and vegetables, poor handling includes poor transportation, for example, where the fruits or the vegetables are bruised, and therefore by bruising them, maybe their skin is damaged, and that creates an entry point for pathogens, disease-causing microorganisms, and therefore you tend to see, in fact, if you look at a fruit, for example, that has been bruised, over time you might see fungi or some form of spores growing. That means it's an entry point for pathogens. And so there's a lot of loss. Not only, it's quite unfortunate that it ends up to affecting the health of human beings, but even when talking about food security itself, there's a need to look at handling, post-harvest handling of produce, and also storage. We lose a lot of produce, as I mentioned, due to storage as well. Cereals, we lose up to 30% of what we produce. So what we are producing perhaps could really meet the deficit that we are having in terms of the food deficit. Remember, Kenya is a food deficit country. We keep on importing food. And yes, we have the potential to produce and feed ourselves. So I agree with you. I think there needs to be a deliberate effort to look at the whole value chain and how to manage and handle food to make sure that it is not only available, but it's also safe for the ultimate consumer.
Look at this. It's generic, like you buy something and then you're told, store in a cool, dry place. It's just the normal thing. Cool, dry place. Then sometimes when you're kids, you're trying to look for the cool, dry place. You're wondering, where is this now? You know what I mean? Now, sometimes you're told, when frozen, it can last for 2 weeks. Not frozen, 1 week. And some people take these instructions very just vaguely, just lightly, and it's kind of detrimental to their health. Now, what's your advice? Because sometimes even manufacturers, I know at the end of the day they have to make money. It's a business, whereby they know this thing at the shelf, this product will last, for example, maybe an estimated from the research, maybe 2 weeks, but they have to prolong it for the marketing purpose, for the financial gain. Do you think even the market players, the producers, are to be blamed here?
Yes, I think despite the fact that we have unscrupulous business people at the primary production level, it stretches all through the value chain. And for sure, I think there needs to be, and it's quite unfortunate that we tend to respond to regulations rather than being proactive and trying to manage ourselves as business people. So people tend to respond when policies and regulations are put in place and when they're monitored. And so that makes the work a little bit more hard. But everybody within the value chain needs to be disciplined, so to speak, to make sure that they're doing their production or food handling or supplies ethically, and ensuring that they just maintain basic ethics in food handling.
Now, another aspect, very important, at the end of the day, when you talk about food poisoning, you talk about all these issues. Now, the aspect of nutrition. At the end of the day, you tell someone, hey, I've added weight, man. Like, you add weight, you wonder, hey, what have you been eating? Now, look at the consumables of ostentation, like ostensive consumables, whereby you feel like people don't need them, but they buy them in large numbers. For example, pizza. No offense. But we don't need pizza, but it's being bought ostensibly. Now, what do you think about the nutritional value also? Do you think now it boils down even to safety? Because safety, nutrition, just survival. Like, you are what you eat.
That's right. Yeah, I think this is one of them, and we have many more. Talk about fries. Look at the nutritive.
Wow, fries, value. Goodness, readily available.
Exactly.
Like you got chips. Oh, wow.
Exactly. Exactly. In fact, I think we have a big chunk of the population that prefer fries than nduma, for example. Yeah, so, and also remember, these are some of the types of foods that have been responsible for non-communicable diseases like obesity and diabetes and all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what needs to happen mainly is to sensitize people and create awareness. Well, this has been happening, but we cannot get tired of it. People need to be kept on reminded in terms of what are the benefits of having nutritious, safe food rather than eating what we call junk food.
Okay. These deaths are entirely preventable. And of course, when you talk about know-how, you know, know-how is very important. The government's just effort to make sure Kenyans are now aware of the even products, consumables from the shelves and everything. What do you think should be done? Because at the end of the day, the foundation of this discussion is safety. Now, do you think the government should be involved here?
Yes. Well, I think they have tried in the past. For instance, we have regulations that manage food in Kenya, food safety. For instance, talk about the Meat Control Act, Chapter 2, I think 315, which is so clear in terms of how to handle meat, and many others. The Public Health Act, and also the Food, Drugs and Substance Act, Chapter 252. All these are regulations that the government has put in place to make sure that food is well handled. But more needs to be done in terms of sensitizing people. Let people, create awareness and make sure that people really understand exactly, right to the village level. Because most of the times what happens, we have, for example, caravans moving around cities. You see, perhaps advertisements on TV. How many people within the village have got TVs, for example? So I think there needs to be a deliberate effort, right? And now the good thing, there is devolution. Maybe using those structures in place to reach people at the grassroots with information on what are the requirements on how to handle food and how to make sure that food is safe for each and everyone. Yes.
All right. Wanashem, I really appreciate your sentiments this morning, and I hope Kenyans will adhere to what you've talked about. For me, I'll repeat this because it's very, very important as far as now that campaign is concerned. Ensure it's safe, now grow it safe, and of course, keep it safe and check it safe. Now team up for safety. Very, very important aspects as far as now the issues of just making sure safety is concerned. But Wanashem, thank you so much for coming, and of course, just hold it right there.